Tonight I want to say a few more words about Outpouring of the Soul, teachings of Rebbe Nachman on meditation. Chapter on meditation begins with a very famous statement. Rebbe Nachman says, "Meditation is the highest path of all. One must therefore set aside an hour or more each day to meditate by himself in a room or in a field." A room or a field. Basically what he's saying is you should do it every day in whatever way circumstances allow. In a room when the weather is not conducive to being outdoors, and outdoors when the weather is right for that. Even when you can't sit outdoors to do this kind of meditation, you can sit near a window or someplace where you have some contact with the sounds and sights, smells, vibrations of nature. Now, Rebbe Nachman recommends, of course, doing this practice primarily at night, in the middle of the night. It's the best time by far for it. Now, in the Eastern Orthodox Christian tradition, the tradition of the Jesus prayer, wouldn't you know, they have exactly the same kind of practice. They wake up in the middle of the night as well and pray, say the Jesus prayer, various other prayers. The Eastern Fathers will say that this light that hides in the divine darkness is a light beyond light. Can't get anywhere near it unless the mind is willing to walk through the dark. Now this is a beautiful image for the person who practices green meditation, because this is in fact what we do. We cycle through the day, and when we get to darkness, dusk, our minds begin to relax, and we begin to feel the approach of this hour of God. We begin to prepare for it by turning off lights, by quieting the mind, by turning off this light. It's the most important light to turn off. If you don't turn off this light, then you can get yourself completely off the grid and go completely without electricity, and you'll still be operating at 1,000 watts. So this is the most important light to turn off. And so the object is to allow the body to come into harmony with the dusk. Rebbe Nachman says that many things, sometimes you will find it impossible to say anything to God, but you can make a conversation and a prayer out of that. In other words, you say, I don't know what's happening, I don't really have anything to talk about, or I don't know, I feel stuck, I feel stopped up, I don't feel like anything's really happening in my life. Before you know it, you're saying, my gosh, I'm bored, there's nothing happening in my life, I wish there were something happening, I wish this were happening. And before you know it, there's a conversation and you're pouring out. The worst thing that can happen to us in meditation practice is that we think we're empty when we're not. That's the worst thing that can happen. That we think we're empty when we're not. Because then we stop pouring, right? Then we stop pouring. The best thing that can happen to us in meditation is when we really do become empty. When we don't hold anything back at all. We don't protect ourselves from the hidden inner little pockets of grief or unhappiness or worry or concern. When we tend to protect those, right, when we practice meditation, and not to spill those things out. The best thing that can happen is that we really do manage somehow to spill all those things out. And once we've done that, then we really do experience emptiness. We really do experience what in Zen Buddhism is called samadhi. A very, very deep state of peace and absorption and tranquility and trust and peace and happiness. We really do experience that when we really do pour everything out. But to really pour everything out like that requires a fair degree of honesty. Not honesty like rigorous honesty with other people necessarily. That comes along as well as we examine ourselves and as we practice more and more. But rather honesty with ourselves about our feelings. I think I mentioned some time ago that I used to wake up every morning and begin saying my mantra right away. And during those years, when I first started this practice, it was either Om Mani Padme Hum, and then I went through a period of years when it was the Jesus prayer, Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me, a sinner. And then I think from there I went to the Nembutsu, Namu Amida. But I learned something very, very valuable. I could do this for about somewhere between 4 and 5, maybe even 6 days or 7 days at a time. And then one morning I would wake up and I would be unable to do it because I would be terribly depressed and unhappy, invariably. And on that morning, I wouldn't be able to do it at all, hardly. And I would get up and I would have coffee, I would go sit outside, and I'd start the day. And at some point during the day, I would figure out what it was that was bothering me or nagging me, right? And then I would sort through that feeling or that thought or that situation, whatever it was that I had protected myself against using the mantra, using the practice, whatever it was. In the old days, it was just a Zen practice I would use to do that when I was a monk living in a monastery. What I finally learned was the first thing I do now when I wake up in the morning is to ask myself, how do you feel? What do you feel? What are you thinking as you wake up? What did you dream? What do you fear? What do you hope for? It doesn't matter which of these I ask, but what is the first word that I ask on waking is what? What is it? What's there inside of you? And oftentimes it's very, very easy to figure out what that is, right? So I register that, and then I start the mantra. Right afterwards. It's the only difference. No other difference. In every other way, the practice, my practice, is pretty much exactly the same. The only difference is when I wake up in the morning, I say, what are you feeling? And the answer is, it varies. Sometimes I wake up feeling very joyous. Other days I wake up feeling worried about money, or thinking about the kids, or if I forgot something, or what I have to do during the week, something. You know, there's some thought that's presenting itself that's there that needs to be addressed. Then I turn my mind over to the practice. And then everything gets sorted out well. So this is what Rebbe Nachman means when he talks about meditation. He says finally that a person may feel that he is very far from this path, but this is not so. It is something that is very close to you in your mouth and your heart, so that you may do it. He's quoting Deuteronomy, okay? And I talked about this a few weeks ago when I quoted the passage from the Dhammapada where it says, the way is not in the sky, the way is in the heart. You know, it's funny, Mara is the great tempter in Buddhism, like sort of like the Buddhist Satan, so to speak. You know, his name literally means delusion or murder or destruction. I asked myself, well, what is it that Mara always does? And there's something that the Buddha always does, and there's something that Mara always does. So what's the difference? And I realized that it was this, that Mara is always pointing us at the sky. It says, get out of this world any way you can. Flee it. Run away. Run away. Respond out of fear. Respond out of yearning. Reject yourself. Reject one another. Reject the world. Reject this reality. Mara is always saying that. The essence of delusion is simply to reject the present reality. All delusion is that, and nothing but that. The Buddha touches the earth, points to this reality always, and does nothing else really but that, over and over again in a multitude, in a variety of different ways. So the Buddha is always pointing down, and Mara is always pointing up.